Hey y'all, it's Kristen here. So happy to see you. I'm excited. I hope you're excited to see what is happening to Youthing Secrets. It is evolving into its new um, expression of radiantly alive women. I hope you love it. I had you in mind when I created it because that's what I want for you, and that's what I want for all of us, is that instead of aging into the default the way that we will, if we don't get these awarenesses, we don't become conscious, we don't actually start to frame ourselves into a great third act, we're going to default into aging. And today I'm going to tell you about a little study, not actually a little study, a big study that confirms that. So you'll know that it's not just me being optimistic, that there's actually some foundation for what I'm going to tell you about. But I want to start at the beginning on Saturday morning because Saturday morning was a really beautiful experience with my new husband. We were sitting in our living room, and out the window, we have a hummingbird feeder, and it was pouring down rain. I mean, really raining. And here comes this little tiny hummingbird up to the feeder, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world can that little tiny bird fly in the rain? Why don't those? I mean, you would think with a little tiny bird, a little tiny raindrop would kind of feel like a bullet. Wouldn't you think that? But no, that isn't at all what was happening. The little bird flew up to the feeder, and he's just hovering there, drinking his sugar syrup in the pouring rain. And I was just so I just had one of those moments of awe, like this appreciation for what life is, and how unexpected things are. And so my husband and I were talking. My husband's an engineer, and of course, he has a science mind. And he was saying, how they hover, they're not supposed to be able to do that. And so I'm asking him about, the science of it, the physics of it. And we're talking about helicopters and how hummingbirds aren't like helicopters, but they're also not like airplanes. So we looked it up on Googled it and found out that the hummingbirds, they have this, I don't even quite know how to picture it in my mind, but it's sort of a figure 8 way of flying so that when they push, regular birds get all their lift from pushing down, and when they lift up, that doesn't help them. But with the hummingbird, they push down and then they flip their wing over and then they push up. And so they get lift both ways, and that's what allows them to hover. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I thought that was fascinating. So we were having this discussion, and my husband said, "Well, that's pretty amazing." And for him, that was, a pretty emotional statement. And I'm over here, and I just tears are coming down my eyes, and I'm just amazed by life and other people, and how amazing this all is. And so the other thing about these hummingbirds is that when they're doing that, their heart is beating 50 times a second. What is, I'm looking at my notes here. I think their heart beats 1,200 times a minute when it's awake. And then when it's at night, I guess they perch somewhere, and their heartbeat goes from 1,200 a minute to 50 a minute. So it's almost like they die at night, y'all. They're just like in sort of a hibernating trance. I don't know, maybe that's not the right word, but they just go into this shutdown mode. And then when they wake up in the morning, their heart cranks back up, and they're off flying around getting their sugar water from me and from the flowers and everything. And so it reminded me of how I've been feeling born again since my wedding. And I didn't really expect the wedding to make that kind of a difference. We're seniors. My sweetheart is 9 years older than me, so we're not spring chickens anymore. But I'm so excited about going through this third act of my life, third act of his life together, and what the possibilities are for us. Because even though we're kind of one of those couples where opposites attract, and he's the scientist and the engineer, and I'm more of a heart type person, but together we make sort of a dynamic approach to life because he's strong where I'm weak and I'm strong where he's not as strong. And so this born again of this wedding has just, it's been a delightful experience for me because I wasn't expecting that. I just didn't know that it was going to light me up so much, but it really has. And so I feel a little bit like the hummingbird, and I'm just inviting you to look for ways for yourself to do things, experience things, go places, think new thoughts that will help you get that feeling of being born again. Because when you think about who we are as human beings, the whole way that our brain works is it gives us an identity, and then it tries to stabilize us in there. And there's a reason for that. We don't want to be like, yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen one of these TV shows where somebody wakes up and they don't remember who they were, and they have to leave notes around their house so that well, you do this and you need to be here then, and this is, well, I think that would be a little too much, but on the other hand, when we live in a box about who we are, we shut down the possibility of being born again every morning. And so there is a way to approach life where we get the balance and the stability of knowing who we are, but we also live in the excitement of who we can become, who we want to become, what dreams are still out there that we can move toward in ways that cause us to do new things and try new things and experience life on this level of becoming. So I'm going to be writing a lot more about that in the future because that to me is the cutting edge of what you think secrets used to be and what radiantly alive women are now is the way of being and living in the third act that calls you into your own experience of radiant aliveness because that's what we want, right? And this woman, Becca Levi, that I wrote about in the post on Monday, she studied people for 20 years. And the difference between the people that had an optimistic view of their third act versus the ones who were expecting a decline, the life expectancy was 7.5 years. That's the average, y'all. The average was 7.5 years longer for the people with an optimistic, forward-thinking view. And if it's the average was 7.5, half of the people got even more than that. What would you think about living 10 extra years feeling radiantly alive? Now, nobody wants to live 10 extra years feeling broken down and diminished and all that. No, that's not attractive. But to live radiantly alive for 10 more years, I think that's worth some attention. And that's what I'm doing, and that's what I invite you to do with me. So I'm still building this. I'm really open to your feedback. I hope you let me know what you think about radiantly alive women. Do you feel inspired to live into that definition of yourself? That can be an identity. I'm living radiantly alive. I'm open to possibility. I see myself becoming, and I'm doing it today. So join me if you want to, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.